Yeah, I'm ready. Hey, everybody. This is Soph,
This is Rich.
and we are from across the
What's up,
pond.
Bond? Good job you're ready, Rich. I think everyone heard that at the beginning, but glad
I
you're
know,
ready.
right? Well, see, that's what makes us 100% authentic.
Authentic.
How was your weekend?
It went by in a flash, and I'm not going to lie, my eyes are finding it hard to adjust because I had a little nap before we came on here. I can't
Ah,
even front.
you called
Um,
it, what do you call it? A kip?
yeah, quick kip. It was only like 10, 15 minutes, but
To me, those are the worst naps for me.
see, now it can go either way. You can have a kip and you can feel amazing even after 10 minutes, or it can go the other way where you have a kip for like 10, 15, 20 minutes and you wake up and you feel worse than you did before you went asleep.
Those little cat naps I can't do.
Well,
I either
normally,
gotta sleep a good 4 hours or 8 hours. And even my little naps are probably like an hour or so, but I cannot if I do like a 15 minute or I wake up feeling worse than what I did before I went to
well,
sleep.
normally I'm quite good at it, but obviously not today.
Quite good at it.
Today.
Um, I'm gonna be honest with you. I watched a couple movies this weekend.
Well, if they're for our movie review, don't give away any spoilers.
No. Well, the one we're going to be discussing this week, and I'm not going to say anything, but I am going to give the title, and that's Coming to America 2.
Don't let your face crack or give away
Nope.
any hint.
I watched the new Disney movie, Raya. I think it's called Raya.
Okay.
I watched Judas and the Black Messiah.
What?
It's called Judas and the Black Messiah.
Judas and the Black Messiah. Okay.
Yeah, it talks about I hope I don't say his name wrong. Fred Hampton, who was one of the members of the Black Panthers. Story is so good.
Sorry, I was just making a note in my across the pond notepad while we talk. Something came to mind.
Okay.
We'll have to wait till Wednesday's meeting to find out what exactly that might be.
Well, that's fine. I like it that way. And what else? There's another movie I watched that was pretty good. I can't think of it, but yeah, I've been on a movie binge this week. Oh, docu-series, Biggie, I Got a Story to Tell.
Was it good?
It's not actually. It wasn't a docu-series. It was a documentary.
Okay, you're totally breaking the rules, by the way, talking about movies and.
I'm just sorry you asked me how I did this week. You asked me what I did this week, and I'm just telling you, I watched TV all weekend. TV all weekend, preparing myself for Serious Sunday.
My weekend has gone in a flash. Alfie was at his dad's. I've tidied up, done a little bit of shopping. I've done some more tidying up, even cleaned the inside of my windows.
Oh, I did some shopping too. I got exotic meat.
You know you're gonna have to talk about that, right? You can't just dash I got exotic meat and leave it there.
Yeah, I'm gonna leave it there because it might be a show. Okay. I want to get Roy. Roy, if you're watching this, Roy, I got some exotic meat for yo. Ish. I got some exotic meat we could talk about.
Now that could go either way.
When you come on the show, oh, you so nasty.
Oh, you said it. Roy, I got some exotic meat for you. Come on, man.
I bought some, I can't even say it now. Anyway, Roy, if you're listening, I got something to put on the Barbie or the grill or the, what do you call it? What do y'all call it? The grill?
Barbecue.
Barbecue? Yeah. The grill.
Well, yeah, keep it for that show when we talk about food because that'll be good. So yeah, everybody's weekend was over in a flash. Whoosh.
Copacetic. It's still Sunday, so weekend ain't over until you close those eyes and watch the inside of your eyelids, and then you
I just
start
done
dancing
that.
with the Sandman.
I just done that.
It's not Monday.
But you said the weekend's over when you close your eyes and look at the back of your eyelids.
Yes, and wake up and it's Monday.
When I wake up and it's Monday, I've got to get straight in to do a 7 a.m. workout.
Oh, shiggity. Well, I just started. I'm getting ready to start my little exercise Monday as well.
You like this?
You know what? I ain't gonna say nothing. I'm gonna show you.
Oh.
Ooh.
Oh.
I wish we were on the same time frame, because you know what? I would do that Mason workout. I would do Mason's workout.
And good, because it would kill you. I'm telling you.
No, it wouldn't, but I hear you.
Like we had a conversation the other day. When was the last time you did a workout, Rich?
No. You asked me when was the last time I competed in running, and I said 6 months ago.
Yeah, which was a lie.
And I said 7 months ago. and then I went from
it kept getting longer
7 months ago to a year ago.
So basically more than likely a year to 18 months, probably.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, men always like to add stuff on to make it themselves look better, I think.
No, you don't, because you women are famous for lying about your age, your weight, all that good jazz.
I'd never lie about my age. I'm going to be 40 this year. Don't even ask about the weight, because I ain't telling you. Never mind lying. End of.
I'm just saying most women lie about their age, or first of all, everybody tells a little white lie here and there. We could talk about that too sometime. But
let's have that as a show, the white lie. What is a white lie, and what is a real big fat juicy one? What is bending the truth? I'm gonna get my pen. I'm gonna get my pen out and write that down.
Yeah, that's gonna be another discussion.
Another discussion. In big fat letters, it says lies, and I'm gonna draw a box around it. Lies. Tune in for the lies. Okay, let's bring it back in, because we're just getting out of control now. Mm-hmm. It's going left, as Esther would say.
Today,
Serious Sunday.
Serious Sunday. Then we're going to be talking about loss.
Okay, and we did think, obviously we have our Wednesday meetings, we did think long and hard about this show, this idea, because this episode. Obviously, you know, I think it's going to cut deep.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to talk about, because
when you say, let's just clarify, when you say a loss, you mean like the loss of someone, right?
Loss of a loved one, or someone close or dear to you that has impacted your life in some way, shape, or form.
And I think, like personally, don't get me wrong, to lose any family member, friend, close one, loved one is devastating. But I definitely think there are different degrees, like, of grief, of loss, because obviously you've lost a twin, which is like half of you. So that would, to me, I feel like that would be, this is probably going to sound terrible, and I'm really sorry. Like, let me just say sorry now for the whole show, because I'm probably going to upset somebody. But I feel like losing a twin would cut deeper than losing, say, just your sister or your brother. Do you know what I mean? Don't get me wrong, it would be bad.
No, I agree. They're
like half of you. Just like I think
agree.
A parent losing a child is worse than if you lost, say, a sister or an aunt. Do you know? I don't even know if I'm explaining that right.
I agree. No. I agree with you. I think there is certain degrees of loss and grief. You know what I mean? Like, yes, I am going to talk about the passing of my brother, but I just want to agree with you. I think there is certain different degrees of loss, as far as like how much that person impacts you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can have a brother and y'all could be estranged and really didn't get to know him, but being that he's your brother and he passes away,
Mm-hmm.
you might feel different than, say, a brother you grew up with and you spent majority of your life with, and then that person passes away. So I do believe there's a different degree of loss
I
or
agree.
grief,
Yeah. Now,
so
the
to
first
speak.
time I ever knew anybody to pass away, I was 14. My grandma passed away, my dad's mum. And obviously it was just, I loved my nan, like I could tell you so many stories about her. But I went to the Chapel of Rest to see her, like where they leave the coffin open and you can go in, pay
They
your.
call it the wake here.
Oh, the wake comes after the funeral here.
Really?
Yeah. That's just like, I'm not being rude, that's just like a gathering, like not a party, but like a gathering of people
Or a
where you have
viewing?
drink and
The
food.
viewing? I think it's called the viewing.
Okay, so we went to the
I might be wrong. I don't know. Someone will correct us. Go ahead.
we went to the Chapel of Rest, and you've got to remember I was only 14, right? It's the first time I ever seen a dead body. Like the thing's open, she's there, I was gonna say asleep. Sorry, you know what I mean. And when you watch a horror film or a film and someone's having a nightmare, they just wake up and go, I kept looking at my nan thinking any minute now she's going to go, and everyone's going to be like, I just kept thinking that because she just looked like she was asleep. So I thought any minute now she's going to, it's not that I was scared, but I just kept thinking any minute now she's just going to go, and it's going to be a bit scary. In the Ukraine, they have this tradition, if you like, where they take photos and you have your photo taken with the dead body. Not obviously you don't get in the blooming coffin, but you just stand next to the coffin, you have your picture taken. So actually I had seen a dead body, obviously, other than filmed in a picture, because I remember going to my nan's house one day and saying, oh, can I have a look at your photo albums? I must have been like 10. She was like, yeah. Opened it and there's my granddad like in his coffin, and I was like, oh, why? And she was like, oh, it's just tradition. So as we were there, everyone was taking it in turns, like my dad, my aunts, to have their picture taken with my nan, and they kept kissing her. My dad kept kissing her hand, they kept kissing her, and I just couldn't. I feel terrible saying it. I could not bring myself to do it. And I remember saying to because we used to call her Nanny Stanny, right? Because obviously our surname's Stanimir. So I remember saying to it was so quiet in there, like a library. And I remember saying to my dad, that don't look like my Nanny Stanny. And he was like, of course it's Nanny Stanny. Who do you think it is? And obviously it was her, but she used to wear false teeth. So obviously her teeth, they had to take her teeth out. So her face was a bit, like, because she was laying down. So it didn't really look like her. Boy, that was definitely an experience I'll never forget. Like I remember for ages afterwards, I thought to myself, don't open your eyes in the dark because she might come. Oh God, I don't mean to laugh. It's not funny. She might come and visit you, and you'll see her. So even to this day, I don't open my eyes. If I need to go to the loo in the middle of the night, I walk with my eyes closed still. I don't open my eyes in the dark. Because for ages, that's what I told myself. Don't open your eyes, because if you open your eyes, you're going to see her, How old were you when you first knew somebody that passed away?
Well, my dad's best friend, Harold, we call him Uncle Harold. But I think with our culture, I think my father was like, during the funeral and all that, he was more or less, and not till I was old enough to understand, were we even allowed to go to funerals?
Okay.
See, when I was younger and we lost relatives or something like that, the younger kids, like say if you're like an age where you don't really understand, you weren't allowed to go. Like my dad wouldn't let you go. Like you just heard about people passing away.
And I don't mean to interrupt you, but I never understood anything about the Chapel of Rest. I didn't know what to expect. I remember my dad called and said, because I've got an older sister. She's 2 years older than me. And he called me and he said, oh, you come in to see Nanny Stanley at the Chapel of Rest? Like a typical child. I said, is Mary going? And he went, yes. Well, I'm going then. Had no idea what it was. Never asked any questions.
Yeah, when we were kids, like they didn't really talk about it. They just was like, yo, so-and-so passed and yada, yada, yada. And you would hear like certain situations, like what's going on, or it was like a little buzz going around, you know, the room or the living room or, you know, around the house. But when we were younger, my dad really never took us to funerals because I think he felt like we weren't, I wouldn't say mature enough, but like not old enough to understand the difference between life and death. Now, being in the military, I think I can't even remember the first person I've seen dead. I just remember my mom's passing.
How old were you when your mom passed?
I was in my 20s when my mom passed.
And did you see your mom when she passed or not?
When you mean when she passed? Like,
yeah, like I saw my nan in the Chapel of Rest. Did you see your mom in
yeah. I saw it. My sister, I have a picture that my sister, she took pictures and I was kind of like, I don't know, some people like that and some people don't. I was kind of like thrown off by it. Like, why are you taking a picture of her dad? But you know, to each his own. Everybody mourns and grieves differently. So I think that was kind of like my sister's way of like dealing with, you know, missing my mom. And because I'm gonna tell you, I'm not a crier, and I don't want to sit here and say, you know, men don't cry, because I used to tell my kids all the time, I wish I could cry. And I used to tell my kids, crying is a part of life and it's healthy. And, you know what I mean? It cleanses your soul. So, like, there's nothing wrong with being a male and cry. Now, have I cried? Yes, I've cried when my mom passed away. I cried when my grandfather passed away. And me and my grandfather was really tight. But I'm gonna tell you,
your dad's dad or your mom's dad?
My mother's dad. Yeah, my mother's dad. And I'm gonna tell you, you know what made me cry at my grandfather's funeral? My older brother. Me and him are like this. My oldest, the oldest of all of us. Me and him are really tight. And I'll never forget, I'm going to the funeral, right? And my brother's in the ministry. So he's sitting up by the pulpit, and he was being real cool and collective. So I'm looking at him like, if he don't cry, I ain't crying either, right? So then all of a sudden, I'm sitting there and I'm just like, yeah, man. But then I'm thinking about like all the stories my brother would tell me, like, because he used to stay with my grandfather. So like he would tell me all these stories. And I can think of like all the memories, like when we would go visit my mom and we would take my grandfather with us. It was just hilarious how my brother used to do them. But they had like a unique bond. So it was like, well, my brother, like, I'll never forget it. He like tilted his head like this and he just started crying and I lost it. I was just like, ah, and I started crying and it was just kind of like overwhelming. But I'm gonna tell you, there was nothing like the tears that came out my face when my brother passed. It was just heartbreaking because it wasn't a normal type of death. I think when people die abruptly, I think it messes with you on a whole different level, unless like you prepare yourself for it. Like if he had like cancer or like he was battling something and he just like, you know, it was his time. But I think when someone that you're close to just abruptly just disappears, I think it affects you a whole lot differently.
Yeah, I think I just got to apologize. I done a U and spilt my water everywhere. It's gone over my phone.
Paper towel.
Gone over my phone and everything, and I didn't want to say anything because obviously this is a really serious subject, but I just gonna tidy
It
up.
happens. That's what we do.
Yeah, sorry, I've totally lost my thread.
Yeah.
Yeah, like my grandma, my other grandma who passed, she was German, right? And she was a machine. I'm not telling. I'm being totally serious. You just thought she was untouchable. Like she walked everywhere, and that might be nothing to some people, but here where we live, there's hills everywhere. So in order for her to get from here, that was her house, to town, she'd have to walk down a hill, up a hill, down a hill, go to town, and then reverse it to come back with all her shopping bags. And she would do that, you know, every week without fail. I remember once I went to my aunt's who lives halfway up a hill, and I was waiting for her, you know, as she was walking up. I went out to greet her. She got to the top and she fell over. And I was like, oh my God. And when I went to help her up, she was like, get off me, get off. You know, she never wanted any help. In fact, the Social Security people came here once to knock on the door and ask if she was still alive, because she hadn't been to the doctors for like 50 years, but her pension was getting cashed. So they thought, is it fraud? Like, you know, there's nothing, how can this work when I have nothing wrong with her? So they knocked on the door. She opened it and saw a man with a clipboard, and she didn't even let him speak. She just said, no, thank you, shut the door in his face. So we knocked on the door again. So she opened it and I said, no, thank you, shut the door. So he knocked again and he said, Mrs. Brown, you know, we're just checking, you know, this is what's occurring. We're just checking. Actually, you're all right, because it's unheard of for nobody to ever go to the doctors. And she was like, wait, I'm not okay. I'm fine. Shut the door. And that was it, gone, you know. Like I used to see her. Sometimes I'd visit and she'd be punching the side of her, like the side of her hip. And I'd say to you, what are you doing? And she'd say, oh, it's fine, I got pain, it will go. And she'd just punch it and that's it. She would never go to the doctors. So I think we just looked at her as being a machine. She was untouchable. She was never ill, nothing. And then I remember I lived in Birmingham, which is like an hour up the road, and I didn't drive then either. And now I did work, by the way, but I was just surfing the net, right? Surfing the net thinking, oh, it's Mother's Day soon. I know, let me call my mum, see if she's got this CD. If not, I'm gonna buy it for her. When I called her, she was crying. And I was like, what? I totally believe in fate after this, by the way. I was like, what's wrong with you? She's like, oh my God, I've just got to Elsa's house and she's laying on the floor. I can see her, but I can't get in. The door's locked and I never bought my key. I said, what are you waiting for? Smash the blooming glass, get in there. She was like, okay, I'm going to do it. Quick back. So I cut the call off, called her other half and said, have you spoken to mum? She was like, no. Told her what happened. Boy, she raced here and was here within like a 40-minute drive. She was here in like 15 minutes, you know. So I called my mum back and she was like, I can't do it. The glass went broke. I can't get in. She's on the floor. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm an hour away, can't even drive. So anyway, then the ambulance came. I was like, right, that's it. I left work straight away, packed a bag, went straight to the hospital. My nan had a stroke and basically fallen and they think she cut her head on the radiator, but you know, obviously they don't know. She wasn't saying anything, you know, she was awake and alert. She was just sitting in bed like that, you know, watching everybody. And I was looking at her, she was looking at me in the eye, you know, and I was saying to her, what have you been doing to yourself, you know? And she was just like, so we all went like home, the visiting time was closing, and I said to my mum, look, let's come back tomorrow morning, we'll go to her favourite shop, we'll buy her some biscuits, you know, a new nightgown, because she would have hated wearing a hospital nightie. I said, and then we'll bring it in. So we went in early. Visiting hours didn't start till 2, but we got there at 1. The lady actually let us in. She was really nice. My nan was asleep, right? She was just, you know, like in the bed. And I said to my mum, oh my God, I've got a headache. You know, like I didn't sleep at all last night. So she said, okay, let's go downstairs to the cafe, get a cup of tea. I've got some headache pills. We'll come back up. I swear to God, we was gone less than 5 minutes. And when we came back, my nan was gone. And we came back and I looked at the bed and I said to my mum, you need to get the doctor. She's not breathing. And my mum said, oh, she started laughing. She said, oh, don't be so silly. I said, I'm not being silly. You need to call somebody. So anyway, then the day came and the woman basically said, oh, how long have you been gone for? You know? And I'm like, honestly, I don't know. And she said, okay, well, they're probably not going to try and resuscitate her for very long because, you know, she's elderly and if you'd have been gone, say, a minute, they probably would have tried longer. I, to this day, carry that guilt. Like, if I never had a headache and we never went to the cafe to get a cup of tea, would they have tried longer to resuscitate my nan? Or, you know, so I still feel bad about that.
Well, you know what? You shouldn't, because guess what? When it's their time, it's their time.
Mm.
And I'm gonna tell you, my grandfather, he was in assisted living, and me and my sister, my one older sister, she deals with, you know, patients and stuff. She's a nurse, so she deals with patients and stuff. And I'll never forget, me and her went down to visit him. And this is after he had his stroke, so he really wasn't talking. So he was just sitting there, just like you. That's what sparked that memory. He was laying, and we used to, oh, like the guys used to always make fun of my grandpa. We used to be like, he had a separate life. He's a, you know, we used to say all kinds of crazy stuff, and he'd be like, boy, y'all don't know what y'all talking about. And we'd be like, oh, you's a player, yada, yada, yada. Because, you know, he lived alone, very sharp dresser. I kid you not. We used to steal his cologne and all kinds of stuff. And I'll never forget when I came home from the military, he was like, I told him, I said, when I come home from the military, I got you, grandpa. Like, you need anything, you need me to take you anywhere. And my grandpa was such a sharp dresser that when I went to take him to a doctor's appointment, he had like this tattered shirt on, and he just didn't look like he was taking care of us. This is before he went into like the assisted living. And I remember one of the last things I remember before he passed was I washed his face, I ironed his shirt, I dressed him, you know, and he just couldn't get over it. He was just like, my grandson washed my face. I can't believe, oh, he washed my face. Oh, you love me. And I was just like, yo, I got you. I told you I got you. So when he was in assisted living, he died the same day me and my sister went to visit him. He was just getting a sponge bath. I'll never forget it, because we always used to give him a hard time calling him a ladies' man and all that. So he was laying there, and I was like, dang, grandpa, like, you can't even say nothing, and you still got hot nurses giving you sponge baths and stuff. And all he did was roll his eyes and he smirked like, here we go. Like, you know what I mean? And then like me and my sister said something to him, and then like we walked into the hallway and we came back in and he was gone. He was gone. Like me and my sister sat there and we waited for like the coroner and all that good stuff. But I was like, to me, when it's their time, like, you know, they're old, they're, you know what I mean, they're old, they lived a full life. Like you said, your grandma just seems like she lived a full life, and she
was 86, and someone did say to me, maybe you should look at it that she waited for you to get there before she decided to go. So who knows? But you talking about your memory, it's funny how one person saying there sparks off another. But I remember she had like a mini stroke before she had that stroke. And I remember one of my nicest, best memories was in between, like she came home in between before she passed away. And I cut her hair for her, you know, like she sat on a chair in the dining room. And I remember she just sat there, you know, as I was cutting her hair, you know, because she was so classy, my nan, like really classy. She always had house clothes, and then if she was going out, she'd always, and I don't mean like joggers, I mean like skirt and a blouse. And then if she was going out, she'd go upstairs and she'd get changed into a different skirt and blouse, but they'd be smart ones, you know, not like, and she'd wear a headscarf, like, and tie it underneath if it was windy, you know, like, loved her so much. But the other thing I remember about when she passed away in the hospital is her and my mum were like really close. Like, I know it hit my mum like really hard. So it's funny, not funny, but when something like that happens, how like, it was only me and my mum there, you know, and I'll forever be grateful that it was me and my mum, you know, that was with her when she passed, and that we had that moment, I suppose, together. But I knew that my mum would be devastated. So therefore I took on the role of, okay, I need to call everybody now, you know, like my other aunts, uncles, my sister, and one at a time they came to the hospital. And I would take them to see my nan behind the curtain. And then when everyone had been, I then went and said to the nurse, okay, everybody's been now. And she was like, okay, well, I need someone to come with me and get all the belongings from your grandma. And I was just like, shit. I was like, okay, fine, I'll do it, you know. So we went back behind the curtain, you know. And I remember this one nurse, because my nan still had her wedding ring on. It was the only piece of jewelry she wore. And this nurse said, okay, I just need you to hold her arm while I take the ring off. I was thinking to myself, geez, I can't do this, you know, but I did. I held my nan's arm. She was trying to get the ring off, but the ring wouldn't come off. So she said, I just need to go and get some cream. And I remember, I think it wasn't until at that point that it actually hit me. Do you know what I mean? And I remember just crying, because I remember looking at her thinking, oh, my beautiful nan, you know. And I think it was my mom actually that came. I just felt somebody's hand on my back, you know. But yeah, that I think was one of the toughest things in that situation.
I'm trying not to get all emotional.
Mm-hmm.
Me and my twin were inseparable. I went to the military, and that was probably I'm sorry, I'm trying to try not to get all worked up. That was the first time that I was away from him. Being that we're twins, and I'm gonna break it down to you, we are fraternal twins. So like he's dark skinned, I'm light skinned. Our features are more or less alike. When we were in school, everybody didn't believe that we were twins. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I kid you not, when I moved back home after my stint in Iraq, I came home and we were just inseparable. Like he picked me up from the airport and we were inseparable from there on. And I'll never forget the last words he said to me, because we would talk to each other like every night, and or every other night or every night, and we used to bug on the phone. And I end up getting a job, which I presently still have now, and we would work pretty much the same schedule, and he would call me and he would be like, yo, I'm on my break. He's a cigarette smoker. I wasn't. So he was kind of like, yo, I'm on my smoke break. Yo, where you at? And I'd be like, oh, I'm on my way. And all his friends would say, man, it's so good to see you, because he's talked so much about you being over in Iraq and yada, yada, yada. He is so happy. Like he can't stop talking about it. And I was just like, man, that's what's up. And I'm a drinker. So I'll never forget it. This was like clockwork. I used to live downtown, and I used to live right around the corner from my brother's barber shop. And never, every Friday, like it was nothing, he would call me and was like, yo, you got a cold one? And I'd be like, always. And he would come over, he would get his hair cut from my brother, come to my house, we have a drink, we talk shit, and then he would go on about his business. And the day that he passed, I'm gonna back it up a little bit. It was like a Thursday. I called him. I was like, yo, what's up? You got to watch this show. Yada, yada. He's like, oh, man. Yo, I heard about that show. Let me call you back. I'm talking to so-and-so. I'll call you back. I was like, all right, cool. Friday comes, like clockwork. He's like, oh, I'm getting a haircut from Mike. Yo, you got a cold one. I'm like, yeah, of course. You know, come through. He comes through. We drinking. We talking shit. Like, he's like, yo, so what you doing this weekend? I was like, well, look, I'm going out, but I'm working overtime on Saturday. And he's like, yo, me too. I'm working overtime too. That's what's up. Yada, yada, yada. And then as he was leaving, I had a wave cap on. As you see me from time to time, I had a wave cap on. He was like, oh, I need one of those. Like, yo, you got an extra one. And I was just like, man, here, just take this one. I took it off my head, gave it to him. And I kid you not, he grabbed it. He looked at me and was like, I love you, bro. That's what's up. I'm so happy you're home. And I was just like, yo, that's what's up. So he leaves. We both go out Friday night. We're partying, yada yada yada. And I never forget it because this is before like Instagram and Facebook. It was MySpace. Remember MySpace?
Mm-hmm.
So I'll never forget it. I come home, I'm trashed. I mean, like I seen him periodically. Like he had his own clique, I had my own clique, and I seen him briefly, and he just like nodded his head because he was running with his little crew. I was running my crew, and I never forget coming home and getting on MySpace. It's like 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, yo, I party so hard, and I gotta go to work in a couple hours, and that's what I left. You know what I mean? So I'll never forget going to work the next day, and I'm getting there and I'm new. I haven't been at the job. I haven't been my brother's been there forever. I only been there maybe 6 months, maybe 6 months, not even a year yet. I just started, I'm new. So I'm working overtime and my phone is like going, and then I was in a warehouse and overtime I was just doing some paperwork, and um my phone was just blowing up, and I had my music jamming, so I'm jamming, listening to my music, and I'm asking all kind of questions because I don't know any of this overtime stuff. I'm just here. So the lead that I was with, he was breaking everything down to me, and the whole time my music is punching, like you can hear it. And but my phone, I'm not paying attention to my phone. And when I looked down at my phone, I had like maybe like 30 messages, 30, 40 messages. And I'm like, yo, what's going on? I called the lady at the front desk where I wasn't staying, but my dad was staying because I recognized the number. She was like, "Yo, your older brother just came looking for you," and I was like, "Looking for me for what?" You know what I mean? Yada yada yada.
Mm.
He's like, "Well, he just ran up to your dad's apartment. You might want to call your dad and find out what's going on." And I was like, "All right, cool." I called my dad, and my dad was like, "What's up?" No, I asked him. He was like, and he kind of got quiet, and I was like, "Is everything okay?" Because Mike is looking for me, and I don't see why he need to be looking for me. Like I'm good, you know what I mean? And my dad just got quiet, and he says, "Your brother passed away," and you immediately, and I don't want to uh, say anything bad, but I immediately thought of my older brother because he's the oldest. So you automatically assume, yo, he's the matriarch. Something must have happened. He was in a car accident, something. You know what I mean? I'm thinking like that. And he was like, and I was like, what, Big J? What happened? Like, because me and him like really close. So I'm like, and he was like, no, Rob, which is my twin's name. And I was just like, it just took me a minute for the register. And I was just like, are you fucking with me? Like, you know what I mean? And I'm gonna kid you not, I, I grew up with my father, and I've never seen him cry ever. And when he got on the phone and he was like, I'm serious, why would I joke like that? And I heard him break down on the phone, it just took all the wind out of me. It did. It just like I just gasped and I couldn't even like speak. And I went over to my lead and I was like, yo, my brother just passed, bro. I'm out. He was like, dude, drop everything. I got it. Go. And I kid you not, it was one of the most heart wrenching things that I don't think I'll ever live down. Like it was kind of like I shot to my dad's house. I had like 50 people. Like by now, I got like 80 messages, like all this, like, where you at? You okay? We heard about it. It was all over the news. My brother was murdered. So he was the first homicide of '09 for the city. So it was kind of that made everything like it was all over the news, which I didn't even watch the news then. I was just rushing to my dad's. And I got to my dad's And I'll never forget it. Like I really, and you know, when you look at your parents and you think like they're invincible, like I still think my dad's invincible. You know what I mean? Even though he's like 75 years old, I look at him like he's gonna live forever. He's gonna outlive all of us. You know what I mean? But when I actually seen his vulnerability, you know what I mean? It just tore me up inside. Like, so I go and he sees me, he grabs my arm and he's like, "You good?" And I'm like, "I'm good." You know what I mean? And my aunt was there and I was like, "Are you like," and in my head, I'm still not grasping that like he's gone. Like, you know what I mean? Like my cousins, his friends that was with him that night, all that they were all like in my dad's apartment. And I was just like, yo, like, and when my dad broke down in front of me, it tore a part of my soul apart. And he was just like, shut the door. And I just left him in there with my aunt. Like I didn't stay on, but I just, as I was shutting the door, I just seen my aunt like consoling my dad. And I was just like heartbroken. And I didn't even cry then. That's the whole thing. Like I didn't even cry then because everything was happening so fast. And my dad was like, "Well, you need to call John Boy," which is my older brother. So I'm calling him. He's like, "Yo, I'm out of town, but I'll be there as soon as I can. I'm on my way." He was like, "All right." So in my head, I kind of like held back the tears, and I felt like, okay, my older brother's telling me this is what I need to do. My dad is in no shape, no form to like, hold the fort down. You know what I mean? Because he's upset. So I was like, in my head, I was more or less like, I'm gonna do this for the fam. Like, I got you, twin. I'm gonna hold it down. Like I picked out his coffin, picked out his outfit. I did everything that could possibly do for a person. You know what I mean? My brother cut his hair. Like I know that had to be I don't know if I think my brother cut his hair, which had to be a hard thing to do because they were inseparable. Like me and my older brother are tight, my second to the oldest, and my twin were like this. So we had like this been, but we all family. But man, I tell you, I didn't cry until I saw my older brother. I saw him sitting on the couch and I was just like, oh, it was like a weight was lifted off me. I was like, he's here. He can take over whatever else needs to be done. You know what I mean? And I just burst into tears. Like as soon as I saw him, crocodile tears was just like plop, plop, plop. And after that, my dad was like laying down rules. Cause I don't know with your culture, with our culture, we get fucked up. Like we was all drinking and shit. I mean, just getting pissy ass drunk, reminiscing, crying, and all that. My dad was like, "No, we're not gonna do this. We're gonna make sure everything is taken care of, and once everything is taken care of, then y'all can do whatever you want." You know what I mean? And it was crazy. It was the craziest time in my life. Like I've been to a dozen funerals. I've been in the military. I've seen tons of dead bodies. Like I even worked in security where I worked in a hospital where I had to like load up dead bodies from the mortuary. That stuff didn't bother. It doesn't bother me. But the simple fact that it was him to this day, when they say, "Oh, as years go by, you'll get over it," I'll never be over it.
They always say that time is a great healer, and I totally don't believe that. I don't believe that at all. I believe that over time you learn to live with it, but time is not a great healer. Like you lost your twin, I lost a child. And I always told I couldn't have kids. So Alfie was like a miracle baby for me. And then when I found out I was pregnant the second time, I was speechless, like I just couldn't believe it. And there were like I don't want to say complications, but, you know, like sometimes it's normal for women to bleed when they're pregnant, you know. So after a period of time, like I started to bleed, went to the hospital, and they were like, listen, it's fine, it's normal, go home, unless it changes color, everything's fine, you know, this is just old, not meaning to sound gross, you know, but maybe my story will help another woman, so I'll just tell it as it is. So they were like, if the blood's dark in color, that just means it's old blood, so it's fine, nothing to worry about, off you go, only worry if it changes color. So then it, you know, eased up or went away. And then over time, it did change color, like bright red, fresh blood. So I went back to the hospital. Again, they was like, look, we've done a check. Everything's fine. Nothing's wrong. Off you go. And then after a little while, like I even paid, my mum came with me and paid for me to have a private scan, because I don't know, just so you know, a woman's intuition, something just didn't seem right.
Yeah.
But we went to, in fact, I had 2 private scans at different points, and both times they were like, you know, everything's fine, you know, we can see there's water, you know, in the sac, whatever. And then one afternoon, I had like it was like a blood clot, right? So I went to A&E emergency. They were like, okay, we'll see you, you know, made me sit they sat me in a bed, you know, in the bit where everyone's wished in and out. They said that it got to like 11 o'clock at night, and they were like, what we're going to do is we're going to bring the mobile scan machine next to your bed, give you a scan, check everything, you know, until tomorrow, and we can book you in for a normal scan. I was like, okay, great. Bought the scan. They were like, everything's fine, here's the baby, here's the water, here's the heartbeat, everything's fine, you know. Oh no, that was it. I had a clot, went back, then I went home, and then that evening I had like a little while, like few weeks passed, I had like a gush of water that came out, right? And I was like, shit, my water's broke, that's not normal. So I went there, they did the scan, they were like, we can still see water's there, you know, so everything's fine, so it, you know, don't worry about it, we'll keep you in here overnight, and then we'll send you to have a scan on the big machine tomorrow. So, you know, Craig went home, I didn't sleep at all, obviously it was so noisy, traffic in and out of the emergency room. Then got to like 10 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, man, these people have forgotten about me. So I called the nurse and I was like, yeah, is anyone, hello, does anyone remember me, you know? She was like, yep, you're on the list, a porter will come and get you, you know. So then a guy came with a wheelchair, sat in the wheelchair, took me to the other part of the hospital, sat on the bed, she puts the jelly on your belly, literally just like it's nothing, said, I'm sorry to tell you there's no heartbeat, you know. I was like, what? My only regret is that I didn't ask them for a copy of that picture, but obviously I wasn't thinking straight. So they wheeled me, I think I was just like in a date, like I don't honestly know what I must have looked like. They wheeled me back to A&E and then just left me in a wheelchair in the corridor, right? This is no word of a lie, like you couldn't write this story up. Left me in a wheelchair in the corridor. Now the woman who was in charge, I don't know how long later, must have walked past me, and she was like, oh my God, are you all right? And I just couldn't speak. And she said, you need to tell me what's happened, otherwise I can't help you. And I said, my baby's died. And she was like, what? And then she just started shouting, who the hell's left this woman in the corridor? Why is she not on the ward? Why have you left her here? And then my mobile phone had died at this point. She said, oh, let me call somebody for you? And I was like, no, I'll call. And I literally, a bit like with my whole Nan situation, I just sucked it up, because I thought, right, I don't want to call Craig, tell him what happened, for him to drive. It was like a 45-minute drive to the hospital. I don't want him to know on the way there in case he speeds. You know what I mean? I don't want him. So I literally just had a massive deep breath. He answered the phone. I said, I'm ready now. You can come and pick me up. He said, no worries, wait for me outside. And I was like, no, wait, I'll be in ward 16. He was like, no, man, wait for me outside, man. I don't want to park the car and pay and come in. I was like, no, they just got to give me some paperwork. I'll be on ward 16. He was like, okay, fine. I don't even remember the bit after that. It's like a blur. So then when he arrived, and then he pulled the curtain back, and he was like, what are you doing in bed? You know, like, I thought he was ready to go. So I had to say to him, baby's died, you know. So then he was crying, I was crying. And then a nurse come in and basically said, okay, you have to deliver the baby, you know. And I was like, what? Can't you just give me a cesarean? You know, had a cesarean with Alfie. Can't you just do it? And she was like, no, you can't. She said, you've got two choices. You can either stay in hospital till Sunday, or you can, it was Friday. She said, or you can go home and come back. And I was like, no, I need to go home because I need to see my other son. You know, I've never left Alfie. So I just remember like driving home from the hospital, staring out of the windscreen, but I didn't feel anything. You know, there was nothing there. Anyway, that night, probably at about 2 a.m, like she said, just go home, everything will be fine, come back Sunday. Don't even give it a second thought, I suppose. That night, unbeknownst to me, I went into labor, right? So I went into labor. I was sat on the loo, like in so much agony. And Craig was like, okay, I'm going to ring the hospital. So he rang them because they'd said, oh, any problems, call back. And she was like, you need to get her off the toilet. You know, I'm going to send an ambulance, but you need to get her off the toilet. I don't know how I got down the stairs. I just remember getting down the stairs and sitting on the bottom staring agony. So then the ambulance came and she was like, okay, you know, you want to come with us? And Craig was like, yeah, you go. Ask, you know, I'll be here with Alfie. Still at this point, I didn't realize, like, it sounds absolutely dumb. I didn't realize I was in labor. They didn't say anything. Got in the ambulance and I was in so much agony that they stopped. I thought we'd arrived at the hospital, but they'd pulled it over so that she could give me some steroid injection, right? So then we got to the hospital, they put me in a bed, and I still didn't, it sounds ridiculous, didn't know I was going to labor. And so I like had, they put these drips in my arm. I had 2 cannulas in one arm, 2 in the other. And then it was a bit, I didn't really know anything. Like I couldn't really open my eyes. It was so painful. And I remember one of the midwives was a black lady, right? Older. She was so nice. And she just kept stroking my legs saying, you'll be all right, darling. You'll be fine, you know. And I could hear her, don't ask me what she was saying, I could hear her down the business end praying, right? And then all of a sudden I heard her say, okay, the head's out. And at that point I was like, oh my God, I've just had a baby, you know, like I didn't even realize, not I didn't realize I was having a baby. I'm probably sounding like I don't make any sense whatsoever, but I didn't realize that was what was going to be occurring at that time. So then I remember she was like, oh, we're going to take you to a room. And they took me to like a private room, I suppose. And then they just left me in there. I was left in there for hours. Nobody came to see me. No one said anything. And then one lady came in and said, oh, has the doctor been around to see you? And I was like, no, nobody's been to see me. She was like, okay, well, she'll come and see you and talk about like you going home. In the meantime, do you want to see the baby? And I was like, I didn't realize that was an option. And she was like, of course, you know, you've had a baby, you can see her. So I said, okay, can you just give me 5 minutes? Called Craig and I said, look, she said, do you want to see the baby? And he was like, no, I don't want to do that. He said, are you going to? And I was like, it's my baby, of course I'm going to see her, you know. And he was like, no, I can't do it, so you just, you know, go ahead, blah blah. So I remember she came back in and I obviously said yeah. And she brought her in like a wicker basket, like wrapped in a knitted blanket with a little knitted hat on. And she said to me, oh, shall I leave you? You know, I'll come back. And I was like, no. I don't know why. I just said, no, don't leave me, you know. And I remember the baby had one eye open, right, like that. So I remember looking at her thinking, oh, you can see me too, you know, like you can see me. Oh, obviously she couldn't. So then after a while she took her, you know, come back, bought photos, and all the rest of it. And then I was like, God, what happens now, you know? She was like, well, the hospital can bury her for you, or you can sort it all out yourself, you know. And I was like, obviously I'm going to sort it out. And if it wasn't for my friend Faye, I don't really know what I'd have done. Because I remember when I came home, like again, driving home from the hospital, I was numb. I don't remember feeling anything. I remember staring out of the window, but couldn't tell you what I was thinking. But Faye called me And I was like, I don't know what to do. You know, what am I supposed to do? And she was like, okay, I'll call you back in a minute. Probably 20 minutes passed, and she literally had sorted everything out. I've called the funeral directors. You just need to call this guy, tell him you give him permission to go to the hospital to collect her. She'll be here. You can do this, you can do that. Man, if something happened today, I still wouldn't know what to do, because obviously she did it all for me. But I remember thinking to myself, right, I must go and buy a blanket and a teddy, you know, and not just anything either. Like, I went to John Lewis, which is like a really expensive shop, bought a blanket, bought a teddy. And I remember going to the funeral directors and saying, first of all, I was saying to him, please can you make sure you put this in there, because I don't want her to be cold and I don't want her to be lonely. And he was like, no problem, I'll do that. And I said, the other thing is, how are you going to be sure you got the right baby? You know, what if they got mixed up? Like, and he just said, yours is the only baby here. I promise you it won't get mixed up. You know, I promise I'll put them in. Then he just said, would you like to see the coffin? I suppose that's what you still call it. And I was just like, yeah. So he bought out this tiny, like, white box. I gave it a kiss. And then my cousin was with me actually at the time. And this isn't funny, but she always finds it funny. As we walked under some trees to go back to my car, and we were both crying walking down the road, and I looked at her, and she had a little worm in her hair that had fallen off from the tree. So she was like, are you okay? And I was like, you got a maggot in your hair, you know. That was all I remember. So then when we had the funeral, I don't know what I expected. I thought they would just say, there you go, there's the box, you know. Honestly, they didn't. It was only me and Craig went. I didn't want anyone else to go, because I wanted us to have some, everything sounds so ridiculous when you say it out loud, but I wanted there to be something just for us. Like, she was our baby, so I wanted it to be just us.
There's nothing wrong with that. Go ahead.
So we went to the cemetery, and the car pulled up like a normal funeral car. Two guys, full on suit, tails, everything, got out, had a red velvet cushion, you know, like carried her on a red velvet cushion. Then like, they lowered the box into the ground, and then they were like, okay, we're just going to give you, you know, like, some time to do whatever. I remember Craig said something, and honestly, I remember like it was yesterday, just looking at this box in the ground, and I really just wanted to scream, that's my baby, you know, give her back, like, she's mine. I wanted to take her home. And it sounds weird, but I'm sure if someone said to me I could have took that box home, I probably would have done, you know. But obviously I couldn't. So yeah.
Yeah, I tell you, the worst thing, I think that the worst thing I regret doing during the process was because they caught the young man who killed my brother, right? And I watched, I wanted that young man to see my face, because I felt like if he saw my face, he would see him, kind of. So like, I've been to everything, his arraignment, this, that, all the way to the very end, to the sentencing and everything. And there's a part during the hearing where they pulled me, my dad, all the family members into this room, and they said, hey, they're going to show some pictures of your son. They said this to my dad. We want you, it's up to you if you want to see the pictures now before they show them to like the jury and all that, so it won't, you know, catch you off guard, and you'll be better prepared. So my dad looks at me and he goes, what you want to do? I'm like, fuck it, I want to see the pictures. You know what I mean? And to this day, I regret looking at those pictures, because from now on, that image of him is forever burnt into my head. And I kind of figure, like, I do remember him, other memories, but that memory is forever burnt into my head. So the guy was like, all right. He's like, all right. He showed these pictures of my brother sitting on this metal slab and his eyes is wide open. His one eye is like bloodshot, like, like he stayed up too late. But he looked so alive that my dad even said, that doesn't even look real. It looks like he wants to say something to us. And to this day, that image of him laying there with his eyes open, like it will forever burn. It's forever burnt into my head. Like,
but it's funny how, like, you say that you wish you'd never seen the pictures. Like now, well, not now, but afterwards, like Craig would say, I should have come to the hospital to see her because, now I'll never get that opportunity. And I was like, well, to me, it was a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you want to see your child? This is why I suppose it's different for a mum and a dad. Like I carried her, so I was.
yeah, I want to see her. Like, I want to see what I carried for 9 months.
Exactly.
I agree.
But obviously, he now has got the regret where
he
like,
wished he would have been able to at least see what you created.
I mean, he's seen the pictures. Don't get me wrong, and like I had a box made, and I keep hospital, like there's scans in there, hospital tags, the pictures, do you know what I mean, things to do with her. And we are the only two people that have seen those pictures, and I swear to God, unless anything ever happens to me, I want it to, unless Alfie one day asks, I don't want anybody else. I don't want anyone else to see her. She's mine. I don't want anyone else to see her. That's just That's just how it is.
That's a part of you, and that's a part of grieving, and that's a part of coping with the loss. I'm gonna tell you right now, the most heartbreakingest thing is that at the funeral, I watched droves and droves of friends and family that my brother impacted their lives. I mean, you would have thought a rock star died. And it moved me to the point to where, like, my brother used to say, oh man, I wish I'd have went with you, like in the military. And I was like, everything happens for a reason, bro, and the impact that he had on people's lives, to where, like, you would have thought a rock star died, because we grew up here. So while I was gone for 8.5 years, my brother has touched so many lives as far as work, friendship, people he done met along the way, to even family members, to the point to where, like, you would have thought it was like, it got to the point to where it was like people standing up just to be there. And I kid you not, I looked at him in the coffin, and the way they put the embalming fluid in you, in the body, it almost looks like he's breathing, because it's circulating through the body. So his body was almost like, looked like he was taking a breath. Right. And I kid you not, I kid you not, to this day, I looked down at him. I gave him a kiss on the forehead, and I was like, I got you, bro. And when they closed that casket, I was no good. Like, and everybody knows that I'm a writer. I done wrote poems for my mother. I done wrote poems for everybody who's damn near passed. He was the only one I did not write a poem for. And I'll never forget, my dad said something, and then they were like, yo, does anybody else want to say something? And I just got up there and I just spoke straight from the heart. And I tried to, like, try not to break down. And my dad was like, oh, I come to the door. I was like, I looked right at him and was like, I got it. I got this. Like, you know what I mean? This is me and him. And I felt like it was me and him for the last time together. Like just me and him on the stage. That's how I felt like when they closed the casket. And it was like, I no longer am not going to see him ever again. And it's just me in front of him. He's behind me. And I'm letting him know that, like, I got this, bro. Like, yo, we got this. You know what I mean? It's just me and you, because we did so much crazy stuff together through our lifetime. Even when, I kid you not, even when I came back, my brother had a hair show. I'll never forget it. My brother had a hair show, and he cut me and my brother's hair. We got all dressed up, and we were like models, you know. We were walking, and I'm all serious about it because I just got out of the military, so I'm all serious. I'm walking out. Ain't nobody say nothing to me. Like, it was like, as soon as my brother comes out, he starts dancing, and like people are going nuts. I'm like, man, they make me look like they don't even know who I am. You know what I mean? He was just that type of person that if he befriended you, you were a friend for life. You know what I mean? I've got a dozen stories of how everything played out the night he passed. I don't even think about it anymore. I just want to think about the lives that he impacted, the friendships that he made, the love that he shared. You know what I mean? Because he was one of those type of guys, like, he give you the shirt off your back, he fight for you. If you were in he was one of those type of guys, if you were in a scrimmage and you guys became friends and you got into something and he saw you get into something, he's like, yo, I got your back. You know, like, yo, what's going on? And then I used to get mad at him because I'd be like, do you even remotely know what that was all about? I sure don't. We used to laugh about it. I'm like, dude, you need to stop doing that. Like, you know what I mean? And that's what I miss.
I think, like you were saying earlier, like grief affects people differently, and you do, like, not funny things, but like for me, probably I'm going to sound terrible. Like, I don't even know why. I can't bring myself to say my baby's name, right? So if anybody asks about her or I talk about her, I just say the baby. And I don't have the answer as regards to why I can't, you know, but I don't. I just, and where she's buried is called a place, it's a place called Snowdrop Garden. So I don't say I'm going to the cemetery. I say, oh, I'm going to the garden. Or I like to try and get like ornaments and things to go there to make it look better. And I'll say, oh yeah, I'm just going to get that to the garden. And like people who don't know me very well would be like, why are you going to put that in your garden? You know, and I'm like, I'm not, you know, or I'll say, I'm going to the garden to see the baby. I just can't say her name. I don't know if that maybe it would make it real, or I'd have to, I don't know, but
you know what makes me emotional, and I'm gonna tell you, I got a dozen friends who are twins, really close to their family members, and I just remember a lot. This is years ago. Me and my brother shared this huge bed when we were kids. Okay. And even all the way up to like the day before he passed, even up to the age he was 32. So up to the age that we were 32, we talked about the same idea since we were kids, sharing a bed. And that's what gets me emotional sometimes when I sit in my yard or I'm cooking or I have friends over or my brother comes over and we're having a good time. I remember us laying in bed and we're like, yo, we're going to live right next door to each other. Or if we don't live right next door to each other, I'm going to live on the same block. our kids are going to be like best friends. Like, you know what I mean? And even at 32, we were still talking like that. Like, I'll never forget riding with him. And he was all quiet. And I was like, what's going on, man? Like, talk to me. He was like, yeah, I heard you was moving. I heard you was leaving. I was like, leaving where? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm like, I just got a new job. I'm like, leaving where? He's like, oh man, I just heard like you was leaving, man. You ain't leaving again, is you? I was like, nah, I'm good. He's like, yo, cause like, and it breaks me down sometimes because I can just hear him like it was yesterday. He was like, cause we supposed to get like, remember we supposed to get the same, we supposed to live on the same block, like live next door to each other. And to be 44 now and him not be here, and I do certain things around my house and I go, you know what? My brother would probably be here right now, like partying with me. Like there's one person I know that like I got a beautiful crib, backyard, yada yada yada. He would be like right here, like on my hip, like football, all that. Like we would be inseparable. And I can just hear him to this day look at me and go, that's what's up. Like, yo, that's what's up. Yo, this crib is hot. That's what's up. That was his favorite word. Like, that's what's up. Yo, you right, you right. You know what I mean?
You know,
Even when he go ahead.
The only other thing I was gonna say, like in my situation that I didn't like particularly, and to this day I haven't said anything to anybody when they say it, but you know, like certain people would say, oh, really sorry for your loss, but you've got Alfie, so you know. And thinking about it, I'm like, okay, so if someone said you had to get rid of one of your children, which one are you going to pick? You can't pick one, you know, because they're all your children, regardless of whether they were here for a day, a year, or 100 years. They're still your child, you know. So it's just, yeah. And I know people don't really know, regardless of who passes away, 9 times out of 10, people don't really know what to say, you know, because let's be honest, if someone says to you, are you okay? Well, no, you're not okay. So that's really a stupid thing to say. And, you know, the only thing they could probably say is there anything we can do for you, you know?
What I can say is when you lose someone as close as a family member, as close as me and my brother, I feel like you're never going to get over it. I don't care how old I get, he is still, I feel like, and I say this all the time, two has now become one. So, and my older brother said it the other day, he was like, yo, every time, like the older you get, like the more and more I see you, I see a lot of him in you. Like I see, you know, and it makes me feel good that I'm representing him in a good light. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know, me and him, they used to call us night and day. They used to be, and like I'm gonna tell you, when me and him was together, we wowed out. Like we used to do a lot of crazy stuff, and I'll just be like, yo, and I'm gonna tell you uh, how I grieved. I don't really think I've grieved. I just more or less like took it on the chin and accepted the fact that he's gone, and just realized that like he's always going to be a part of me. Because I'm gonna kid you, I cried when I saw my older brother, and the day of the funeral, I'll never forget it. I took a shower. I got out the shower and I took a quick glance into the mirror, and I literally saw him in my face. And I just cried into my bath towel. I just cried into my bath towel. And then after that,
but I think, like you said, don't matter how old you are or how long it goes on, there's always going to be something that happens or something that's said that triggers a memory, or, you know, like I know every year, you know, 13th of September, that's her birthday. So literally as soon as September starts, my stomach drops and I am quiet, you know, because I know this is what's coming up, you know. And it, you know, like funny enough, had a meeting last year or a discussion with Mason, you know, we had on the show because he's a life coach. And he was like, okay, well, what, you know, what is it like? And I said, honestly, it's that it just hurts so much. Like, you know, like when people say, oh, I've broken up with my boyfriend, I'm heartbroken. I can feel my heart actually aches, like it's physical pain. And he was like, okay, well, what would you want? And I said, I just wish it didn't hurt so much, you know. But it does.
Mm-hmm. I'm gonna tell you, when people say like, oh man, you know, the time heals all wounds, and those cliche, I call them cliches. And I'm gonna tell you, to this part, there's a part of my heart that is missing.
I'd say exactly the same.
There's like
there's a hole.
I feel like I wouldn't even say it's a pinhole. I feel like it's just a black spot. Like,
and I also feel like, I wonder if you feel the same. Like, I feel like it can never be filled up.
It will never. There is nobody on this earth that can replace that hole. That hole, I feel like that hole looks. You ever see a black hole that they show on TV where it's just like steady moving, but like it's just black. It's like, and I feel like it's a part of it, like right there in my heart.
You can't fix it. You can never fix it.
There's nothing you can do about it. It just spins around, and it's just a little black hole, and there's no way of filling it. That's how I feel.
Okay, well, we've already gone over the hour, but I don't care. I would just say, what would be your, I don't know if piece of advice is the thing to say, what would be your one line to people about the situation, grief?
Well, this is what they say. They say when grandparents pass away, you lose your past. They say when you lose a mother and father, you lose your present. And when you lose a child, you lose your future. And I feel like if I were to give any type of advice to anyone, I would just tell them to always remember them in a good light, and let that good light motivate you. Because
I would just say, you know, like they say, when you have a child, it doesn't come with a handbook. I would say the same about grief. It don't come with a handbook. However you grieve, that's what's right for you. There's no right or wrong way to grieve. If you cry every day for 20 years, that's how you deal with it. Just cry. Look at me. I cry all the time, you know.
I'm holding all back mine. I literally told you before this show, it's like I got me an extra hard drink.
Yo, I think I don't. I'm surprised I did this well.
There was a couple of times where I was just like,
well, I cried at your story and mine, you know, so hey, I had it for both of us. So anyway, we need to close up this show.
Yes, I just want to say to everyone who's ever lost a family member, best friend, all that like, you know what I mean? We got you. We understand. You know, as long as you're on this earth, you're going to lose people. You're going to gain people in your life. Like I've gained Sophie in my life. You know what I mean? And, you know, I've lost people along the way. And all you can do is remember the good things and try to use the good things to motivate you to do even better things.
Totes agree.
So what we're going to say, this is Soph.
This is Rich.
And we are from across the pond.